10 of the 2020 Democratic candidates will take the debate stage tonight. Congress votes on humanitarian aid, and special counsel Robert Mueller is expected to testify before Congress.
Oh boy, there's a lot to get into today. We're going to be joined by two congressional members from neighboring states. That's first Democratic Congresswoman Jan Schakowsky, she's from Illinois, and Republican Congressman Larry Bucshon of Indiana. Let's take a listen. Congresswoman, thank you for being here. There's a lot going on this week, and we'd like to get your take on some of the big items. So you guys have, Mr. Mueller has now agreed to show up in front of Congress. Does that mean that the inquiries into impeachment are going to start to heat up now?
You know, I've said for a long time that what we need is the television version of the Mueller report. He doesn't have to go beyond the Mueller report in any way. I've read it all, and both chapter 1 and 2 are really damning, both the interference with our elections, but also definitely the effort to obstruct justice by the president. There's just absolutely no question about it. And so if Mueller just goes after and talks about some of the things that are in the report, the vast majority of people who haven't read it will get a much bolder picture, a much clearer picture of the things that the president did to try and stop the investigation. So no doubt about it.
And just to be clear, you were not for impeachment a couple of weeks ago, but you recently have come out in favor of it, right?
I did, that there should be an impeachment inquiry, that we should use all the tools in the toolbox to get the most information, the best information. But I do think that this is going to be a really major piece, having Mueller himself, the author of the report, come and talk about what's in it. And I really, when you hear about how he was calling his staff, Don McGahn, to call and try and get Mueller fired, he called him at home several times over the weekend to make sure that happened. Those kinds of facts coming out, people seeing what he did to cover up, to make sure that the American people did not get the information from Mueller. It's really very, very explicit that there has been obstruction of justice.
So, Congresswoman, are you basically saying there's no new information that's going to come out in this inquiry? This testimony is really just an effort in order to bring more heightened scrutiny and public awareness to the Mueller report?
Will it bring more scrutiny?
Well,
what we say?
I'm just asking. I mean, if the testimony is not meant to be able to ask any new questions because he won't go beyond the scope of the Mueller report, is the point of the testimony then to just have it as a public relations stunt?
It may suggest that other witnesses can ask more questions, but Jamal, I am so convinced that if nothing more than the Mueller report, the words that are written in the most 500-page report are talked about, the key highlights of that, that's all that's really needed. There's nothing more that's needed, I think, to show the American people what he has done. So I'm not concerned that he can't answer questions that go beyond the report, because the report pretty much tells it all.
I think Sagar has another question for you.
Yeah, final question for you, ma'am. We have this current situation going on at the U.S.-Mexico border. We saw the horrific photo of a drowning of a father and a child. The president also called off deportation raids, giving Congress 2 weeks in order to, quote, get their act together. So what actions is the United States Congress taking in order to make sure that those raids are called off and to solve the crisis at the southern border that's going on right now?
I want to tell you something. There is such palpable fear right now in my district, which is in the Chicago area, where we are welcoming to refugees and immigrants from around the world. It is palpable. My husband was in a Home Depot this weekend, and he was wearing a hat from an embassy around the world, from Spain, and it had like an American eagle on it. And he could see the fear. There were people in that store that worked there that were afraid that he was ICE. And then we're seeing at the border the most unspeakable cruelty that we have ever seen. So what Congress has done now is say, okay, let's deal with this emergency situation. Add some money, although I want to tell you that there's over $700 spent every night for these children that are in custody, who don't have a bed to sleep on, who are not given any toothbrush, that they're sleeping in a Mylar blanket, which is like tinfoil, no soap for these children, and there's been outbreaks of influenza. What is going on? This is the United States of America. You know, if these children, if these individuals were prisoners of war, the United States would be in violation of international law. You can't treat people like that. And so I think the horror show that the American people are seeing right now down at the border, people dead in the river, it's just not American. It is not acceptable, and I think that's the image that people are getting right now. These are like concentration camps, and I'm not afraid to use that word because we are concentrating people, children, in one place in horrible, unacceptable conditions. We have to stop this now.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, Congresswoman. We appreciate your take on this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So much going on this week. Joining us now is Republican Congressman Larry Bucshon of Indiana. Welcome, Congressman. A couple pretty big items in the news that we wanted to get your take on this morning. And
Sure.
So right now we have the immigration fight that is taking over Congress. The president delayed deportation raids, saying that he's going to give Congress 2 weeks in order to get their act together in terms of asylum law. Have you seen any substantive action in the body right now in order to tackle this problem head on?
Well, I don't see any on the House side. I think, it's been really a decades-long discussion about how we deal with our immigration system. The thing we do agree on right now is Health and Human Services is going to run out of money by the end of the week to help take care of all these children that are unaccompanied and other families down at the border, and it's a critical situation. The House passed a bill last night, which was a partisan vote. The Democrats not including some of the money that the president wanted to expand bed space and other things. The Senate is going to act today. There is an agreement on that. The broader discussion about asylum laws and other changes in loopholes that are allowing this influx of migrants from primarily Central America really is up in the air. So I don't know where that will go.
Congressman, as a physician, we've seen some troubling conditions for children in some of these facilities. Actually, just yesterday, a photo was released of a father and his daughter who drowned. As a physician and as a lawmaker, how are you approaching this particular issue and looking to solve this crisis?
Yeah, first of all, I've been down there. I've been to McAllen. I've had the briefings. I've toured all of the centers that HHS and honestly ICE is using to help these migrants as they've come a long trek across Mexico, many of them with illnesses. And, the pictures like you saw yesterday are tragic. And I think that's why we have to have changes to our asylum laws and to these loopholes to discourage people from making this trip. But we also need changes to our legal immigration system so the people that want to come here don't risk their lives to come. And so it's a humanitarian crisis down there on the border. Our people are doing the best they can. They're overwhelmed, and the reason you see the conditions like they are is because the overwhelming number of people and the amount of space that we have and the amount of people that we have to take care of these migrants just isn't there. So they need more money, but also they need some changes in the law. And one of the things they need to change is the number of judges to adjudicate asylum claims so that people don't have to wait, 3 or 4 years to get their asylum claims adjudicated. And then we need to change some of the other laws as it relates to the ability to deport people who have already had their day in court and who were not granted asylum. And that's what the president was talking about as far as deportations, not going randomly through neighborhoods, but people who have a final order for deportation that they have had their day in court and they were found not to have a legitimate asylum claim. We have a rule of law and they should leave the country, and if not, then they need to be removed.
So Congressman, what are you going to be watching for in that 2020 Democratic debate? You come from the state of Indiana. It's a crucial state. It's really part of the base of which voted for President Trump. What are the people in your district going to be watching for in that debate?
Well, I think they're going to be watching for people with solutions to problems, not just people who are criticizing what the president's doing. And I would say that on the Republican side also. You know, we want people that are running for office, whether it's at the local level all the way to the presidency, to be proposing policy solutions that are good for the American people. So I think in Indiana, just as all other states, people should be looking at what their ideas are to improve the quality of lives for the American people. And if it's just a Donald Trump hate fest, I think people in Indiana won't take well to that. And I don't think it'll do well for the candidates on the Democrat side to do that. There are some real problems in this country. We talked about immigration. We talked about health care costs in the past. But there's a number of other things that we need to solve. We still have education deficits in some of our communities, and people are not getting properly educated. We have all kinds of problems. That's what people in Indiana are going to be looking for. What are the solutions and what are the policy ideas that these candidates have to help make people's lives better?
Well, thank you so much for joining us, Congressman. We really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
We'll have more Rising for you after this.